weren't at the table when they occurred. It's a classic sign of story contamination. When a single version is shared and retold so often, it becomes indistinguishable from truth, even to those who weren't present. These weren't the only red flags. The behavior of Kate and Jerry McCann in the days following Madeleine's disappearance also raised troubling questions. Police noted Kate's emotional control. She was calm, too calm, her answers polished, her grief contained. To investigators, it felt like she wasn't mourning a child, she was managing a narrative. And that narrative? It remained flawlessly aligned with her husband's. Their couple's timelines matched point for point. It was remarkable and unlikely. Years later, in the introduction to her book, Kate wrote something haunting. There have been many times when I have struggled to keep myself together. I know the truth, we know the truth, and God knows the truth.
It is still a struggle for me to see beyond tomorrow. Every day I wake up hoping that this will be the day we find Madeleine. But having lived through 4 painful years without my dear daughter, I have reluctantly been forced to acknowledge that our quest could take weeks, months, or yet more years. And the reality is we have to ensure we have adequate funding.
She wasn't speaking as a mother demanding justice. She was speaking as someone carrying a secret too heavy to bear. The theory that Madeleine died on May 2nd gains more ground with each re-examination. That day, something changed. Kate's diary shifts in tone. She pours her love into words directed at her daughter. My sweetheart, my darling, my love, my companion. I love you more than anything. I'm going to dream that I'm lying by your side. It's beautiful, heartbreaking, but also final. No such entry appears for May 3rd. Meanwhile, restaurant staff recalled that Jerry McCann was gone for over half an hour that night, that Kate left the table shortly after. These absences contradict their own claim of quick checks done every 15 minutes. Kitchen staff and waiters couldn't confirm who left when, only that the story changed with each retelling. And when Kate was questioned by Portuguese police, she was faced with 22 forensic questions about blood in the car, DNA on clothing, timelines that didn't fit. She refused to break down. No tears, no outrage, just control. Investigators offered her a deal: confess to an accidental death, receive a short sentence. She refused. Some saw that as strength, others as defiance. Then came the breaking point. In 2024, for the first time in 17 years, the McCanns skipped the annual memorial service for their daughter. Instead, they disappeared to an undisclosed location. The date? May 2nd. The same day Bernt Stellander released his controversial book detailing why he believed Madeleine had died not on the 3rd, but on the 2nd. Coincidence? Or a silent acknowledgement? Kate's own words provide the final clue. In her diary, she repeatedly lashes out, not at the tragedy, but at the judgment of others. Nobody should judge or criticize. They have no idea how painful it is. But that's not grief. That's defense. Even the book she published stopped short of full transparency. Publishing the truth is fraught with risks, she wrote. It leaves us open to more criticism. It was, by her own admission, only a version of the truth. Bernt Stellander concluded something unsettling: that May 3rd was never the day tragedy struck. It was the day the performance began. The curtain rose, the lines were rehearsed, and the world watched what it believed was a crisis unfold, without ever seeing the night before. The truth may never be known, but if Madeleine McCann did die on May 2nd, then everything that came after was not just mourning, it was cover. And the night of all nights was the one no one was supposed to remember.
I think what you have to remember there is a huge amount of work going on in the background, and we know that there's an absolutely huge amount of information coming through.
In the years following Madeleine's disappearance, a haunting detail emerged. Kate McCann reportedly had a vivid dream in which she saw her daughter's lifeless body buried on a hillside overlooking the beach in Praia da Luz. Some dismissed it as the desperate imagining of a grieving mother, but others saw something more, a turning point. One investigator called it not a metaphor, but a map. That man was Bernt Stellander, an independent researcher who moved to the Algarve in 2016. With no background in law enforcement, only curiosity and conviction, he began tracing the contours of Kate's dream, believing it pointed not to a figment of imagination, but to a place, a real place, a grave. Stellander wasn't satisfied with police reports. He walked the hills east of Praia da Luz himself, surveying terrain, looking not for bodies, but for symbols, subtle, deliberate, sacred. And one day, in March 2017, he found them, a heart-shaped ring of stones, a pink flower, a wooden letter M. It wasn't random. It looked like a shrine. What came next raised more questions than answers. After sending anonymous messages hinting the site had been discovered, Stellander's hidden trail cameras captured something strange. Kate and Jerry McCann revisiting the very hill described in her dream, not in running clothes, not with their twins. Quiet, solitary, repetitive. And this wasn't a one-time visit. It happened again and again. What were they doing there?
And I started one area, and then something, I just got this thing, hey, this is not the place. And I stopped. So I had like a little bump in the ground right next to one of these symbols. It was actually another symbol on top of that one. So I changed my mind inside this cave-like structure under the tree. But anyway, so this is what I put up a camera there instead.
For Stellander, this wasn't just routine. It wasn't grief expressed through exercise. It was psychological gravity, guilt orbiting its source. The concept is known in criminology and grief psychology as romanticizing the grave. It refers to a strange but documented behavior. Those responsible, whether by accident or intent, for a death may return repeatedly to the site of loss, not to hide, but to feel, to rewrite the narrative, to transform a location of shame into a shrine of meaning. Kate's dream, according to Stellander, wasn't symbolic, it was geographic. And her behavior afterward, he believed, revealed not only emotional distress, but knowledge. The location matched, the symbols matched, the timing matched, and soon, even the language started to betray more than what was said. In an interview, Jerry McCann tried to dismiss the dream. It's not true that Kate dreamed of her being buried somewhere, he said, but no one had mentioned the word buried yet. In forensic linguistics, this is called preemptive denial, a subconscious projection that often occurs when guilt or fear preoccupies the mind. Most people would say, she didn't have that dream, or it was just a dream. But Jerry leaped forward to burial. Before the idea had even surfaced, the denial revealed what it was trying to suppress. Stellander returned to Spot 1, as he named the site. What he found again and again was confirmation, not through forensics, but through symbolism. The carefully arranged stones, the fresh flower, the unmistakable M, a mother's initial, a daughter's grave. And then Kate returned, not with media, not with family, but alone. Paparazzi once captured her jogging, holding a crumpled photo of Madeleine in her hand. Not a prop for the cameras, because there were none. just a silent offering carried up the hill like a pilgrim bearing tribute. According to Stellander, this was no workout. This was ritual, a private procession to a place saturated with unspoken meaning. Why bring Madeleine's picture? Why alone? Why here? Weeks later, cadaver dogs would detect the scent of death in the trunk of a rental car the McCanns began using long after Madeleine was reported missing. Still, there is no forensic evidence to tie them directly to a burial. No confession, no remains. But there is language, there are patterns, and there is behavior.
But anyway, so this is what I put up a camera there instead.
The camera recorded a man walking through the exact area. Not hiking, not sightseeing, not exercising, just passing. Quietly. Alone. No children, no joggers, no gear. Nothing but purpose in his stride. That man was Jerry McCann. The same man who, 10 years earlier, had stood in front of the world pleading for the return of his daughter. Now, here he was, captured on film at a remote, unmarked hilltop that no one had publicly linked to the case. No memorials marked the space. No press had ever visited it. And yet, he went there. It was, according to Stellander, the first visible crack in the public narrative. What reason would a father have to visit a place like that unless he knew what was there?
So I was looking for very subtle symbols there, like a heart, pink flowers, the letter M. And the weird thing was that in this area too, I found all of the above. And then I put up a camera there, and then boom, here comes Jerry McCann past. What are the chances? I knew that I could go solo and do this on my own by starting a cat and mouse game with anonymous emails to them. Not about where, but that it might have been discovered, just to create some stormy waters and sleepless nights, to have them come back and narrow down the area.
Within days, Stellander's camera captured Kate and Jerry McCann, along with a few close friends, quietly revisiting Spot 1. Not as a family, not as part of a media campaign, but in silence, cautious, calculated. One by one, they moved through the area, observing the exact places Stellander had documented before. The heart of stones, the flower, the M. It wasn't a walk. It wasn't curiosity. It looked like inspection. For Stellander, this was not just a reaction. It was data. The camera watched for weeks, then months, then years, and what it saw was unnerving. The visits to Spot 1 continued, sometimes Jerry, sometimes Kate, occasionally both. But never with their children, never with a crowd, never with fanfare. These were not commemorations. These were not grieving rituals. These were returns. Stellander saw a pattern. He saw what he called ritual behavior rooted in emotional fixation. A psychological model in which those involved in a traumatic loss, especially one they played a role in, returned compulsively to the scene of concealment. Not to mourn, but to remember, to control, to relive. He called it romanticizing the grave. The hilltop had become, in his words, sacred, not to the public, but to them, a place that could not be let go. As his investigation deepened, Stellander refined his theory. Madeleine had died accidentally the night before she was reported missing, likely from a fall, potentially drug-related sedation. And in panic, her parents, with the help of their friends, staged a false abduction. He believed her body was initially hidden nearby, then relocated with a rental car. But all of that, he admits, was speculation, until the camera. The footage was never released to the public, not because it wasn't real, but because it wasn't enough. Stellander asked himself a question that would become central to his case. If someone had sent him, an innocent father, a message suggesting his missing daughter's grave might be discovered? Wouldn't he have gone straight to the authorities? Wouldn't he have begged them to dig, to investigate, to clear his name? But there was no digging, no outrage, just silence and more visits. According to Stellander, that silence wasn't indifference, it was fear. He called it defensive guilt, not the kind that lashes out, but the kind that plans, that protects, that stays quiet because it knows what must be kept hidden. In analyzing their response, Stellander noted that the McCanns didn't act like people seeking truth. They acted like people safeguarding a secret.
They hate you. You're gonna die. I don't want to do this.
Stellander's hidden trail cameras captured something strange. Kate and Jerry McCann revisiting the very hill described in her dream.
They hate you.
On the night of May 3rd, 2007, as the world would later be told, Madeleine McCann vanished from a holiday apartment in Portugal while her parents dined nearby. But what if that night wasn't the beginning of a nightmare, but the climax of a cover? The question no one dares to ask is this: why would the McCanns sedate their two remaining children on the very night of their daughter's supposed abduction, if not to ensure they remained asleep during a meticulously staged performance? The answer, as chilling as it is unspoken, lies not in what happened that night, but in what may have happened the night before.
We look forward to scrutinising the police files to see what has actually been done, and more importantly, what can still be done.
When you lose a child, you can't eat, you can't sleep, and you definitely can't play tennis or go for a jog. That's just my opinion. But the point was that they were jogging on the hillside, and they made sure that everybody knew.
It is still a struggle for me to see beyond tomorrow. Every day I wake up hoping that this will be the day we find Madeleine.
Enter Bernt Stellander, a retired Norwegian military police officer, a man untouched by media politics or PR campaigns. For 7 years, he worked alone. No badges, no orders, just questions. He planted hidden cameras in the hills of Praia de Luz. He decoded behavioral cues, tracked unspoken rituals, and sent cryptic emails to provoke psychological responses. He didn't ask who took Madeleine. He asked something darker, something final. Was Madeleine McCann ever meant to be found, or was she buried in plain sight? No breaking headlines ever told this story, because this isn't the story the world heard. But what unfolded in Praia de Luz became a decades-long mystery, and as the official narrative hardened around the evening of May 3rd, 2007, something vital may have been overlooked. What if the tragedy didn't happen that night at all? What if Madeleine McCann died the day before? The case is one of the most scrutinized child disappearances in modern history. And yet, in the shadows of media headlines and public sympathy, lies a disturbing possibility, one that challenges everything we've been told. In her private diary, Kate McCann described it not just as any night, but as the night of all nights. The phrase sits there, raw and heavy, with no clarification. Madeleine officially vanished the following night. So why mark the second as emotionally pivotal? Independent investigator Bernt Stellander posed the same question. Why would a grieving mother remember May 2nd as an apex of emotional experience if her daughter was still alive that night? It's here the first cracks begin to show. The so-called Tapas 7, the McCanns' friends dining with them each night, provided police with statements meant to reinforce a clear, repeated narrative. That every half hour, one of the parents checked on the children. That everything was fine until it wasn't. But when investigators compared those statements, something didn't feel right. The language was almost too perfect. Descriptions of lighting in the apartment, sleeping positions, even the routes taken to check on the children were eerily aligned. Not just similar, but rehearsed. Linguistic analysts have a term for this: artificial synchrony. It's what happens when people attempt to memorize a version of events rather than speak from memory. The result? Scripted unity. Real memories differ. Manufactured ones echo. Midway through dinner on May 3rd, waitstaff at the Tapas restaurant noticed something else. Men leaving the table for 15, 30, even 40 minutes. One dish had to be reheated. One man returned just as the group was leaving. This directly contradicted the routine check timeline the McCanns insisted on. And the timing gets worse. A bartender recalled seeing a walkie-talkie, or sound monitor, left on the tapas table, never mentioned in official interviews. If this were simply a device to listen for crying, why leave it there unattended while supposedly going to check in person? Even more chilling, when Madeleine was declared missing, there was no chaos, no shouting, no hysteria, just an elderly woman calmly informing staff that a child had disappeared. The rest of the group, silent. It was as if they'd all agreed on how to behave, and then failed to react at all. Then there's the impossible clarity. Some group members later referenced events they couldn't have